Well, I spoke with Opposition Leader Tony Abbott earlier today and asked if the intervention had achieved its primary aim, protecting children.
I think the intervention has made a difference. It hasn't been perfect. Nothing is perfect, but it has made a difference, and I think the challenge now is to build on that, to try to see if we can extend the intervention to Alice Springs and the other major centres of the Territory, so that we ensure that everywhere in the Territory the kids go to school, the adults go to work, and the ordinary law of the land is observed.
The government would say that's just a three-word slogan. The hard part's making it work.
I don't pretend that it's easy, but if we start with the right expectation, then there is at least some hope of making it happen.
The laws and the intentions are in place. What's not happening is delivery.
You know, there has not been a truancy fine imposed in the Territory for 10 years, and we know that even the enrolment is often as low as 60%, let alone the attendance. So I think we've got to get fair income. Now, the government is telling people, the federal government is telling people that the Centrelink payments of the parents of truant kids are still being quarantined. I'd like to see the figures because I don't see any dramatic improvement in school attendance at this time.
But it's not just a failure of this government or that government, is it? It's a failure of all governments at all times.
I absolutely accept that, and that's why I said to the Prime Minister to indicate that the country, not just individual politicians, are taking this seriously. Why don't the two of us, in a spirit of bipartisanship, go to Alice Springs, sit down with the senior Indigenous leadership and at least let them know that we are determined to make a difference.
Just on work and looking around Alice Springs, and it's different here than it is in remote areas because there is work available, and I've seen Africans working here in the service industry, I've seen backpackers working here. Why aren't Aboriginal Australians working in those jobs?
Well, I think that for too long there has not been the expectation that Aboriginal kids would go to school or the expectation that Aboriginal adults would take work. Now, we've got to break that expectation, and one of the very encouraging things is that we now have senior, highly articulate Indigenous advocates like Alison Anderson and Bess Price, who are saying things have got to change, our people have got to take responsibility, and at the heart of that is being normal Australians, at least in that respect. Our kids go to school and our adults go to work.
And Aboriginal politics is as fractured, if not more fractured, than federal politics. So how do you go about getting agreement here? Who do you listen to?
That's true. And in the end, it is up to the government, in my case the national government, to say this is what we expect. But we should work with people to bring about those appropriate expectations rather than in isolation from them. And that's why I was very pleased to sit down today with a large group of senior traditional owners, including a lot of people who don't normally see eye to eye and who don't normally sit down together.
Has the intervention stemmed the rivers of grog? You can go in Alice Springs today to one of three what they call animal bars that open at 10 and close at 2, that seat 400 people and cater exclusively to an Aboriginal clientele. Where's the social responsibility in that?
Well, I don't like that, and I think that there's more to be done here. But the start of tackling the rivers of grog is to enforce the existing law. Now, the existing law says that there should be no drinking in the riverbed. The existing law says that there should be no drinking in the town camps. And yet we know that drinking takes place because I was picking up wine bladders myself earlier today.
Where's the social responsibility, though? You appeal today to people's social responsibility. Where is the responsibility of these companies who are behaving in this sort of way?
Look, I accept that more needs to be done, and as I said, in the first instance we've got to enforce the existing law, but I would certainly appeal to everyone involved in the retail alcohol trade, from Woolies and Coles down, to ask themselves the question, this might be good for business, but is it good for the country?
Aren't all these things, though, just symptoms? What we really face is a people trapped between a lifestyle that no longer exists and one that they don't have access to.
And this is why you've got people like Noel Pearson saying that Aboriginal people, Aboriginal kids, need the very best general Australian academic education, but they also need a decent education in their own high culture. Now, I think this is a very lofty goal that Noel has put forward, but if you look at people like Alison Anderson and Bess Price, they are fluent in many Aboriginal languages. They are people of law and culture and language, but they are also extremely capable of operating at the very top of the general Australian community. Now, that's got to be the aspiration that we have for Aboriginal people.
One of the problems with the first intervention was that you didn't go with the goodwill of the people because you didn't consult them. How can you possibly consult enough people in this very fractured environment?
Well, I accept that the original intervention wasn't perfect. I think it was necessary, but sure, it wasn't perfect. But there were particular circumstances applying at the time of the original intervention. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't be working for further change, further improvements that build on the platform that the original intervention gave us.
Finally, Tony Abbott, do you actually think that Julia Gillard will make a journey with you to Central Australia?
Well, as I understand it, as a result of today's meeting, she and I are both going to be invited to a meeting of the Central Land Council in August. I certainly want to be there, and I intend to be there, and I hope the Prime Minister comes too. I don't see what harm it could do, and given that we both want to see the kids at school, the adults at work, and the law observed, why not go there and talk to the Aboriginal people about how we can make this finally happen?
Tony Abbott, thank you.
Thanks, Chris.